welcome to Kramer Talk. Robert Kramer here. How are we all doing today? Brad Shimmin, great to have you back on. We're on a Kramer Talk where we talk about really yourself and the industry, but nothing specific to, doesn't have to be about technologies. It has to be about us and the people that really make up our conversation of what we think of the technologies that are at hand and how the industry is going. So, how are you doing today? Good morning.
Good morning, Robert. Yeah, it's great to be here. I enjoy doing these with you, and you're spot on, man. Because technology does not exist in a vacuum; it is consumed by humans, and so it's very much a part of our existence, our life, and how we define ourselves. And so, I think it's important to view it that way, not in isolation.
That's true. So we spoke maybe about a month ago, and things have evolved, especially as they're evolving every day. So, what specifically as agentic AI gets closer to being adopted in the enterprise settings, I mean, that's a big deal. So, there's companies like Oracle that have been pushing Fusion agentic applications and an AI native builder experience as well, while Microsoft has been emphasizing governed data foundations for their AI agents. And you actually recently posted something around agentic AI, and it's still early, but from a skills and operational readiness standpoint, there's things that are maturing from that perspective. So thoughts on how things are changed mostly from the enterprise perspective or more from the AI and automation, or both?
Yeah, so both, man. So 30 days is a long time right now. And I think that what I've noticed in my travels, and I spend a lot of time with the technology vendor community. So every day I'm on the phone with them, hearing about their go-to-market strategies and their roadmaps and the things that they care about. And they're starting to wake up right now to what a silent, sort of constrained cry that's been building in the enterprise over the last 6 months, which is, okay, token maxing was a bad idea. we need some operational control, observability, and most importantly, the whole notion of applying FinOps to our investments in agentic AI. And to that end, you can see how that is now turning into some problems for many model makers and platform providers. And you don't have to look any further than Anthropic right now and how they're responding to the Kimi K3 release of the last week and what that means for them in terms of they're getting a lot of pressure now to say, maybe I don't need to have this sort of complex, ever-evolving sort of, how do I put this, unknowableness of how I spend my tokens and the tokens I have available to spend on, because it's been very much you'd like to use Fable? Sure, you can have it for 50% of your token spend. And oh, wait, that wasn't actually 50%. It was actually less than that. And companies can't run that way.
Do you think that that's going to be but do you think that because you opened up a kind of a can of worms, I think business has to be practical for the customers in a way that makes a lot of sense. That looks like a good cup of coffee, by the way.
It is espresso.
Looks good. I have like a 3-hour-old cup of coffee, so I've been up for a while. But
sometimes that's the best coffee because it's right at that sort of cooling stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's I even have it in a nice Yeti mug, but it's
excellent.
I don't know, it's a little cold. Anyways, we're talking about how agentic AI and how you pay for it. How do you pay for these agents and tokens, et cetera? Do you think that that's going to be the way it's going to be in 2 years? It just seems so complex. It does. And we need to make it easier to be adopted and that customers can use it without flinching that they're buying gas.
Yeah. Do you remember when you and I were visiting with SAP earlier in the year, and we were having a number of discussions around value-based pricing or outcome-based pricing?
Yep.
And I, at the time, and still do feel that is a very laudable approach for a company like SAP to take, because they are partners with their customers. They're not just slinging software. So I like that they were thinking that way. But since that time, the more I think about it, and as we were just reflecting on what's happening right now, I'm not sure that's even achievable.
Yeah.
because the level of complexity required to just manage how a model consumes tokens and the expense of both the input, the cache, and the output. You need another model to basically look through that and understand what your spend could be if you're maybe switching from Anthropic to the moonshot models, right?
But the vendors have to get paid for this as well. So there has to be a system. We're not trying to say the vendors shouldn't make money. We're trying to say that because it has to be easier for the customers to understand it, so they adopt it, and they don't stop short of using it because they're overwhelmed with the complexity and then the pricing models and what the price ends up being. You don't want to go into a month not knowing what you're going to spend and then get a bill for 3 times that. So how does that work? I'm not sure what that is. I thought the best way is to give it away for free, get the customers adopted, that also know that they'll
that
pay
is what
for
happens.
Yeah, but they got to pay for it at some point. Now, does this, and then you can back into the ROI to say, hey, at the end of the day, I'm saving, time, money, less resources, more efficiency. So I do have that cost that I'm already using now that I can move it towards this. And I just think at the same time, it's a challenge for both sides. So
agreed. It's a bit of a shell game, is it not, right now, in terms of where the actual cost is, and you can see that reflected not just in AI, but just in the data market itself, for data gravity and where you put your data. And so you see a lot of these larger companies, and especially the hyperscalers, subsidizing, or just they're assuming that cost of moving data, so that you can have what's currently called zero ETL to access your data wherever it is. And I saw companies like Domo, as an analytics company, years and years ago, take that same approach to say, we're not going to charge you to put data in our data lake, just put it there. We'll do it however many rows you want. Walmart took them up on it and to move to just a few rows. And it turns out that that's like not something that you can maintain over time. You need, as you just rightfully described, a means of moving that to something that benefits both the customer and the provider.
But look at where we're at today. I mean, we're all talking about some of these complexities that are going on, but 10 years ago, most companies were on premise, although cloud was obviously introduced, but most larger like ERP systems were on premise. Data was not as prevalent of a discussion. AI wasn't involved in the discussion yet. And here we are talking about everything that we're dealing with and how we're moving co-pilots to answer questions and taking action, and how this affects the enterprise software market. And that's the next question I want to ask you. But we went from that to this. So do we have are we in better shape? I would say 100% yes. I don't think we saw it coming that AI needed to rely on data as much. And now the systems that we're developing need that. And the customers are trying to get their alignment with data in a way that they can exercise AI how it is supposed to be done with the system from an action perspective. So we have moved from co-pilots that answer questions to agents that are taking action. So based on that and what I was just describing, what does that change for the enterprise software buyers?
Yeah, they have to rethink what they consider software, and how they build it, how they buy it, and how they manage it. They maintain it. And it's you're so right about what you said about that sort of misplaced worry that we had initially about what models, when they had a hallucination problem, that wasn't because of the model, that was because of the data. Has always been, always will be. It's always been a data problem. So it is fascinating to me to see how quickly the market is moving to rethink and then rethink again how you construct these sort of autonomous agents that can take action to not just replicate a workflow. Because I think that is that's why when I say they need to rethink software, that's what I'm talking about. This isn't just a repeat of the RPA fiasco that we had in the marketplace, where companies were like, okay, here are all the existing workflows I have. Let's pick 10 of the best ones and automate them. It's not like that. It's a fundamental like reshaping of what those workflows are. Should you perhaps in an agentic era where you're talking about software that's not task oriented but goal oriented, the workflow, the sequence isn't really the important thing anymore.
Right, because we're talking about outcomes versus past tense, and I think that's the system of record versus system of action. I think we are going to that, and I think it's exciting as heck. And as companies are moving forward with all these great technologies, I think at the same time they're trying to figure out which ones fit within their processes the best versus just adopting everything that's out there. And I think it's the smart ones are uncovering what they need to help enhance what their business is versus just putting things in because that's the mainstream thing to do.
That's the problem, though, isn't it, Robert? Don't you think it's almost too easy to adopt the software? And because it's so easy, that I think makes it impossible to actually end up consuming the software. Do you know what I mean? It's like counterintuitive. The faster you can adopt technology, the less likely you're able to actually implement that technology.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of like a question I had is where do you think companies are most likely to get agentic AI wrong? So are we talking about data? Is it governance? Is it process design, security, change management, all the above, something else? What do you think about that?
Well, it's always been the data, as we said, but not like you think, perhaps. It's not about the data itself. It's about the data about the data. Let me get meta for a minute. And actually, it's about the metadata. So it's about everything starting with your basic data models of what is in a database. What does that column mean? What is the data we're storing in that role? Is it an integer or is it a character? And then goes on up the stack of value. To reach this crescendo of what you might have when you're trying to describe an ontology, which is not just what your measures are, which is what you might get out of a data catalog and a semantic layer, but how you arrive at those. It's like the process of what does it mean when I say quarter close? I know what it means, but how do I get it? You know what I mean? So that's the part I think that's still maturing rapidly right now. We've sort of got very quickly to a point where the underlying data stratum, the place where all the data lives, can almost be anywhere now because of said subsidization for a part of it, but also because of great standards that we've seen, like Apache Iceberg, which is growing so rapidly into a fully functioning data layer that looks a lot more like a database than it does just a file system. But anyway, it's really the problem is above that layer and how you build the infrastructure that can take all of that messy data, turn it into something that an agent can use and use consistently. And you might think, it's just make sure once you understand the data, you just get it to the agent. And that can be a problem on a couple of fronts. One is performance and timeliness, right? Because if you have an agent that's booking airfares, this is something we can all understand pretty readily. If I have an agent booking an airfare, it's kind of important that it know what seats are available, right? So,
and where you want to set,
right? And that can change like in a very split second. And so, you need to be able to build an architecture of meaning and of context. So semantics and what I like, I'm very much into nodes and edges with graphs. So you need to have the context it sits in, how the data relates to other data, and you need to know what the data means. If you put those two together in a smart way, and you get that to the model in an efficient way, then you can have a goal-driven agent book that flight for you. Otherwise, it's going to hallucinate seats. It's going to do that, or it might think that everything's right, but it actually some other agent sold that seat just a fraction of a second ago. It's not an easy task. So I think it's that level above the data that's most difficult right now for companies to really get right.
So I don't think it's about everything you just said, but when companies release things like, "Hey, I have 25 new agents," is that as important as what you just said? Because the end result, the outcome, maybe 22 of the 25 don't apply to how I do business, so I'm not going to use them anyways.
Right.
But so what you said is I need agents to do these specific tasks, or it's not doable.
Yeah, you can't just roll out, say, we have an agent strategy and we have embraced agents, automated agents. If all those agents are doing are replacing basic processes like a chatbot, that's not agentic software. That's just AI enabled software. So yeah, it's something that I think we're just still at the cusp of seeing truly agentic software being built in the enterprise. As you would imagine, those who have a very mature data estate, those who have a lot of operational rigor in terms of how they build software, those that understand the importance of metadata and getting that right are the ones that are best positioned to actually build actual agentic software.
So this is one of the tricky things that I like to talk about. So if AI agents are doing all these things that you just mentioned, which are great, and they approve something, they update something, they say, Brad, finish this task off, and you need to bill it and then ship it, then bill it. Not bill it, then ship it.
That's a good example.
But what if you do bill it, but then you never ship it? But who's responsible when something goes wrong?
Oof, yeah.
So there has to be, what governance is invoked for that, because that and the tokens and the things of the hallucination, those are the scary things. When a major manufacturer, they're going to want these things to be tightened up before they let it loose. And they are being let loose, but probably baby steps. What do you think?
Well, exactly. And they're doing it with a low-hanging fruit that isn't going to cause irreparable harm to their company generally.
Yeah.
If it can cause that kind of harm, then they're investing in something that you would call observability first and foremost. Because without that, you're never going to get to that magic FinOps we were talking about earlier. You're also not going to get to having the ability to do root cause analysis. You're not going to be able to get to the ability to have a auditable lineage of not just the data, but how the process that an agent took to get from point A to point B. Because as you and I have talked about, as we just mentioned a few minutes ago, you're not cataloging tasks that are just rules in a rules engine or in a spreadsheet. You're actually allowing these agents to find the best route to the solution. And so without the ability to see what they did, the changes that were made, tie that to the changes in the data, and then see that all the way down, you're never going to have any kind of auditability. You're never going to have any kind of assurity or responsibility for where and when something went wrong. So you just got to make that stop number one.
You do. And so as we are changing and technology is moving, we talked about, it was like 30 days ago when we last chatted, all of a sudden a lot of stuff's happened since then. Businesses are trying to adopt AI agents to do much of the work. We're trying to figure out who owns the governance, how do we pay for it, what skills are needed from your perspective to manage these agents, or for you to change to do more strategic work. Because I think that's a miss, that maybe some companies are just like, okay, I'll have the agents and then that will help my business. But I think you have to separate it. I talk a lot, and I've mentioned this 1,000 times, I'm really sick of it, but Industry 5.0, collaboration of the robots and the humans. When you bring the robots in, the agents, and they're doing these tasks, you have to move those people to be more of a strategic role. Are we training them? So how do we fix that?
We're not training them, but they are moving in that direction nonetheless. The studies that we've done showed that when we asked data professionals if they were now doing more business work than writing out syntax for SQL queries and whatnot, 70% of them said, yeah, already changed, done. I'm doing a lot less of that now. And so they're already, because of the power of generative AI and agentic AI and the tool chains we have right now are simply incredible in terms of what they can do when you talk about things like an agentic harness like Claude Code or Codex.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that mean? Does that mean that they're just thinking about pie in the sky? How can I best build a data pipeline to bring data in from the system? No, they're really thinking about how can I help the business?
Right.
And that's where the real value is of AI to me, is that if you can, basically take the infrastructure we have and use AI to, in essence, abstract away the menial, the complex, the
Right.
untenable, tasks, then you free up humans to actually think about the business and how they can do that business better, because they have in their toolkit now the ability to collapse the time that it takes to go from ideation to implementation. That's the real collapse of software that people mistakenly are saying is the end of SaaS software. To me, it's the collapse of time, not of what you're building.
Yep. That's well said. Because of the fact that you're going to bring AI into the picture, it has to fit into where you need help, not necessarily like we talked about before. You have gaps. Either your processes are fantastic or they're not. So you need better processes. AI can help with better processes, or when you're gaps in processes, it can help fill that as well. But you can't just put it in there to be a problem where it's not being a productive efficiency, because that's actually not really talked about. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is interesting. Is it revealing the nature of white collar work in general? As being just filling 8 hours? I don't know. What are any of us doing? It is interesting to sort of, and I think that's why I said at the outset of our chat today that companies really need to rethink what software is and how they conduct their business. And as you just rightfully said, it all depends on how you implement it, whether it's useful to you or not as a company and as an individual. So when I see companies chasing that never-ending stream of innovations, and as we said, because it's so darn easy to bring it in, you can end up getting lost in that forest of opportunity.
Well, you can never sacrifice your business, okay? And you have existing processes, you have customers, you have production lines, or you have distribution lines, or you have both. You retail, whatever your business, healthcare, financial. You can't risk change to your business flow. But you're going to have to change if you're going to bring new software in. Now, does that software enhance your business? That's an evaluation you have to do before you bring it in, and that's what we're talking about, right? So, and that's the biggest thing. So, ERP systems, you want to modernize because you want to take advantage of all this great technology, but you have to modernize in a way that's going to make you better, grow your business for the same amount of people, make you more competitive, have a competitive advantage. Not to say I have 35 agents in my procurement, right?
So, and they're equal to humans, and we treat them the same way as humans.
That's not what we're looking to do. So I have a couple of friends that work at a chemical facility, and they manage a large plant, and they had, I don't know, 6 or 7 different ERPs, and they wanted to obviously harmonize that into one, and either they didn't have the resources to do it, or they didn't, or just wasn't the fit. They said they're going to give it a year, and it was not successful, and financially it was.
How much did that cost for that?
So it cost them a lot of money, and they said, forget it. We're not going to change because we've already risked too much. I think that is that a planning issue? Is that an AI issue? Is that a process issue, or a change issue, or all the above? Because of the fact that they probably would work, but I think that what I just mentioned causes complexity, and maybe companies aren't ready for that.
Yeah, they're not. When we ask practitioners with our surveys, we're always asking, hey, what's the biggest roadblock to actually succeeding with AI? And the number one isn't security or governance, it's integration. Is the complexity of it.
Yeah.
And so I think the example you just described is probably a bit of everything, but I think majority of the blame I would lay is on the leadership in not truly understanding the scope of the problem and the investment that it would require in both tech and expertise to actually make this thing work. And I think that's why we're seeing a ton of companies. I don't know. I have a hard time with this because the topic I want to bring up, Robert, is forward deployed engineers. It is all the rage right now. And if you haven't heard of this, you can simply look up Palantir as your
we've talked about them before. Yep.
Right.
Continue.
Right. So everyone is interested in this. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is basically taking what you would normally get from an SI, which is feet on the ground to help you as a company implement a solution, and then they would pull back. But this is not the case with the model we're talking about, forward deployed engineer. They are more of a partner, an ongoing partner, that you end up with what would look like more of like a co-development sort of practice that survives long term. And it's not software you buy off the shelf and, okay, I've taught you to fish, now go fish. It's I'll go fishing with you every day kind of thing. And I think that is helping companies that perhaps would make mistakes like that. And so I applaud it from that perspective.
Yep.
But I think also at the same time, it's a little dangerous for companies because they create in doing so something that is far more difficult to ever pull back from or change direction from than you would with a traditional SI relationship or even a VAR or VAD relationship, which they're built to stay with you.
Right.
But this you have no choice. You are definitely staying with it. So I think it points to a larger issue here, and it's really that. Just like in science fiction, where you see stories about people that have lost the ability to manage their machines or even understand how those machines work. And I think given the pace of innovation that we see right now and the complexity of the systems that we're building, that we're rapidly kind of approaching that sort of place wherein ask somebody how a system works, that's built agentically or managed agentically, and no one's going to be able to tell you that. I've experienced it in my daily life as a practitioner with something as little as 15,000 lines of code, and it's not a question of understanding the 15,000 lines of code. It's a question of understanding where that is relative to where it was yesterday, relative to the day before and the day before that, and what the impact will be because of those changes for tomorrow and the day after that.
Yeah, I agree.
You lose that, don't you? Yeah. Right. Sorry, man, but we're losing that ability, I think, pretty quickly because we're collapsing that time to value.
Well, and that's what it is at the end of the day that is needed. The value, the outcome. How do we get there and show that? I think we're caught up in not getting that and the features and the capabilities versus the outcome. And I'm not sure that's what your point is, but at the end, the customers, there's a lot of mass confusion because of what you said and just what I just mentioned as well. But so if you were advising a CIO or a COO today, where would you tell them to start with agentic AI? Because we've talked about it a lot today. Me and you've talked a lot before. Or would you advise them to, give you three choices. Would you advise them to do nothing and just let things mature?
Like to wait?
Yep. Yeah. Would you tell them to, just do a few things that are the easiest manual task and then walk before you run, or to just completely go all in? Or none of
I would say go all in, but do it right. There's no point in waiting. You can only step into a stream once at any point. It's the same with this. If you were to try to wait for some sort of stability, you're kidding yourself. That is not coming. If you were to try to do this very piecemeal, you're going to find yourself, how do I put this? if you get something right in one very, very specific domain, you're not just finding yourself having to scale it out, just like copy paste to bring it to the rest of the company. Every single copy paste is going to be a unique snowflake that you have to deal with uniquely.
Okay.
So you can't just treat this as like, just pick one use case and make it go and job's done. You have to really rethink your business as an AI enabled, powered, however you want to put it, business. And that means investing in people and then technology, not the other way around.
What an amazing chance, because we talked about where we were 10 years ago. You have a chance now to reshape your business more so than you ever had in the past. You get to go fix your data. And you would never have that mission going on because we closed the books and that was it. You're going to go fix your data. And once the data, I agree with jumping in, maybe not as hard as, I don't like to go off the deep end, but maybe I'm going to the middle of the pool.
But pick somewhere where you're not going to like drown.
But going to the middle of the pool, not going in the deep end. I'm not going to go in the ocean on my paddleboard where the waves are high.
There is rip current or whatever. Tide,
But the one thing I will not do is go unless I feel comfortable with my data. Once my data is there, I'm in. And I think that that's the message. It's like, what an opportunity to reshape my business, look at my processes, look at my people, invest in my people, like you said, but at the same time, look at what I have and how do I make them better? Right. So
agreed. But I want to put a caveat on that, if you don't mind, because it is a chance to improve, reshape your data, but you shouldn't think of it that way. I'm saying as advice to people viewing this. It's not the challenges that companies have had in getting to a point where they even knew what data they had, let alone were able to ensure that it was high quality data, has been a problem for the last 40 plus years. And nothing has changed about that. And nothing will change about that. So what I'm saying is that we shouldn't think of what we're building here as something that is going to require or help us actually fix all that so that everything we understand, everything works. Never going to be like that. What you need to bear in mind if you're thinking of implementing AI to rethink your business is, I want to create a sort of direct line of sight between the data and the outcome. And once you get that, once you can see it through your periscope, then where to put your energies. And once you do that, you can say, okay, I don't need to make a data mart that has like this extremely locked down, cube to reason over. No. Maybe it's something as simple as just standing up a very quick context graph that only deals with this small set of data that I need to solve this particular problem that an agent is reasoning over. That's what you should be thinking about if you're implementing this. Is not boiling the ocean, but actually charting a course that can get you across that ocean.
Actually, that's well said. Everything is a puzzle. You're putting it together to get to the outcome that you're talking about. Just the last question I have, and we'll wrap it up. What will we look back on in 2 years from now and realize we might have misunderstood something about enterprise AI in 2026? What do you think that might be?
I think it's going to be looking back and realizing that the control we thought we had, we never truly had. I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be a sort of revision of what our expectations of software and of good means, and if the outcome is the outcome, and the outcome needs to be over 98% every single time to hit that mark, then maybe if we're thinking AI is going to do that, we're idiots, because you'll never chase that zero. You'll never get there. But if in 2 years' time we wake up and go, we never really had control, but we were actually getting to our goal of completing a task. It just was a little messier than I think we thought we should have. And maybe we'll be okay living with that messier sort of state of computing.
Well said. I really appreciate it. Brad, thank you for joining Kramer Talk. We'll see you again probably in a month. Robert Kramer here. Kramer ERP. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.